Hey guys, it's Tiffany here. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you enjoyed last week's little trip to Naxos with me. It's my favorite Greek island and I really needed to get away from Athens. It's gotten really hot here and I really needed to see something different. Anyway, I'll link that video up above and you can check it out if you haven't already. And this week I'm going to talk to you about what travel to Greece and within Greece is like right now. But before I get to that, I have a few things that I want to talk to you about really quickly, like a little bit of housekeeping kind of stuff. So the first thing is that if you're not following me on Instagram, you're missing some daily updates. I post a lot more to Instagram stories than I do Instagram, and even here, obviously, almost every day. There are some days I'm really busy with work and that doesn't happen. Also, if you're not an Instagram person, if you want to follow me on Facebook, all those Instagram stories get updated to my Facebook page, and those will all be listed down below in the description box. And I'm just mentioning that because I know not everybody reads the description. It's totally fine. So if you didn't read last week's description, you'll realize that I had some sound issues last week. Well, and I've been having sound issues, let's be honest. And I have figured out it's my external microphone, and I'm still trying to figure out how to prevent that from happening. It seems to have this weird crackling noise when I first start recording. So I'm going to turn it on and let it film for a few seconds before I start talking. I kind of need it though because it has the windsock on it so that it prevents all the wind noise that's happening if I just record with my camera. If I'm recording like this, it's fine. I don't need the external mic. So with that being said, I'd really like to get a better mic. I'd actually like to get some other camera equipment, but of course, money is always an issue. I'm self-employed and this is not yet making me money. It's not the goal anyway. I really came on here because I really like sharing these things with you. But that being said, if you would like to support me getting a new mic or new equipment, I'm going to include two links below. One is to my Buy Me a Coffee app, and you can donate like a one-time donation starting at like $3 all the way up to whatever. The other one is my Patreon, and I haven't really talked about it a lot, so I don't have anybody on there yet, so it's not really active yet. But if I start getting people on there to sponsor me, then I'll start creating more content for just Patreon people. Okay, enough with the financial blech. All right, so going to Naxos was a really good experience for me to kind of see what travel right now in Greece is like. And I was actually really kind of shocked. First, the ferry ride. The ferry ride was pretty normal in the sense that I expected the things that happened. You have to fill out a form before you get on the ferry stating where you're going and your phone number and I think your passport information, and then they ask you a series of questions about whether or not you've been exposed to somebody, have you been sick. Anyway, I'm going to link that form down in the description box as well, so if you are coming to Greece and you want to print it out in advance, you can. They have plenty of them for you at the port. It's not an issue, but you know, if you just want to kind of see what you're being asked. It's kind of a way of tracing people. Greece is trying to keep track of where people are so that if there is an outbreak, they can contact you and say, hey, you might have been exposed, you probably need to quarantine for, 2 weeks. Then on the ferry, which you may have seen in my Naxos video, you have to wear a mask the entire time. I mean, obviously if you're eating and drinking, you don't have to wear a mask, but they were actually coming through and asking people throughout the ferry ride in different areas to put their masks on. They did want you to wear them outside, but people were a little more relaxed about it out there. Obviously, being in the fresh air, it's not as likely, I assume, I'm not a medical expert, don't quote me, to spread it when you're outside. Now, some people were wearing them outside, but obviously a lot of people are out there to eat and smoke, so it's kind of hard to do with a mask on. It was awful. I'm not gonna lie, wearing a mask for 6 hours was not fun, but it's protecting me and it's protecting other people, so I'm happy to do it, especially if it means I get to go to the island. I'm not going to complain too much because I really needed to go. I'm going to show you some clips here. You know, they have like marks on seats asking you not to sit in every seat, and signs saying please keep your distance, and like only 2 people were allowed in the bathrooms at a time. Although that was kind of hard to tell, because it's like, how do you go into a bathroom and tell whether or not there are 2 people, because, you know, the doors for the stalls go to the floor, so you can't really see people's feet. But they are limiting the number of passengers on the ferries, so the ferry was not super crowded like it can be. And it is early in the season still, technically, and a lot of people still aren't allowed to come to Greece. So I don't know, I had another friend who went on to another island the same time I did, much smaller ferry line, and she said it was packed and that there was no social distancing going on. So definitely wear your mask on the ferry, despite how painful it might be. If that bothers you, then I suggest you either fly to your destination so you don't have to wear it as long, or you go to an island that's closer to either the airport or to Athens or something like that. So once I got to Naxos, one of the biggest things I realized was that a lot of the seasonal hotels were not open. I mean, I would say almost all of the seasonal hotels were not open. I think I saw a handful of them that were actually open. And from what I understand, a lot of them may not open for the year because they don't think it's worth it financially. And that is because a lot of these people bring people from other places to work on the island for the summer. So they're having to pay accommodation costs for those people, plus getting them there, and sometimes food is included in their like meals. So it's a big expense to bring people to work in a season that may or may not be profitable, because right now Americans still cannot come to Greece. It is June 30th. They were supposed to make announcements about travel to Greece yesterday or today. Not Greece, but to the EU. They did not. It's still up in the air, and right now Americans are still banned. And that's some of the biggest people who come and spend lots of money here in Greece are Americans. So that's part of the reason. The other reason is Greece has put forward a lot of disinfectant like regulations that the hotels and Airbnb have to follow. And I don't know how they're like policing that. I haven't heard anything about it, but I believe that, I don't know all the protocols because they haven't been released to the public. They've mainly been released to the hotel associations and like individual hotels. You know, thorough, like not just cleaning between and changing linens and everything, but everything has to be disinfected between guests. And they also have to air out the rooms for 24 hours after the previous guest has left. So for a lot of these really small hotels, if somebody comes for one night and then leaves, so then they have an empty room for one night when they could have someone in there, and it may be that somebody wants to book with them, but because they're having to leave a room open, they don't have availability. So then those people go somewhere else. Then, some hotels, I know the smaller ones are requiring people to stay a minimum number of days, which is probably really smart, because then it becomes less, like they've worked out the cost benefit ratio for themselves to figure out how many nights they need that to work for them. You know, and a lot of people, they just don't want to take the risk. You know, these islands that are so small, you know, EOS has 2,000 people on it in the year round, and they don't have a hospital. They have a small clinic. I've been to it. I think it has 1 bed in it. Now, all of the islands have had upgrades to their medical facilities as a result of all of this. So bravo to the Greek government for making sure that these islands are protected. And there is a plan in place for if you get sick on an island, you would either go to a larger island where they are capable of taking care of you, and if it gets even more severe, then you will be taken to Athens or the nearest like big city. You know, if you were closer to Crete, you would probably go to Crete. Crete has much better hospitals than the small islands. In fact, we were allowed to go to Crete before we were allowed to go to any of the other islands, because they figured that if there was an outbreak, they could handle it. So, just keep that in mind. Your favorite hotel in Greece may not be opening, or they may be open much later. They may open starting tomorrow on the 1st, because more and more countries are going to be allowed starting tomorrow. So just be prepared for that. The other thing you need to prepare for is, like, when I was in Naxos, I would say most of the seasonal restaurants were not open. Again, they just didn't feel like it was worth it to be open yet. There just aren't enough tourists there to sustain them because the locals can't afford to eat out, and they certainly can't afford to eat out all the time now because a lot of them have not been working this winter, and even though they've probably gotten some relief from the Greek government, it's just not enough. They are out and about though. Naxos was very alive considering there was like nobody there. The beaches were empty. I mean, even late in the days, some people started to come, but it was still really, and this is a big thing, because the seasonal restaurants haven't opened, a lot of the beach places are not open, and so the umbrellas and sunbeds are not there. So if you normally come and you rent a sunbed and an umbrella for the day, they may not be available. So you may have to like buy your own umbrella and sit under it, which will save you some money, I guess, in the long run. And maybe you can eat out a few more times and support the restaurants that are open. However, just be prepared that your restaurant may not be open. You may not be able to go sit on a sunbed like you normally do. And some places, although I didn't see this in Naxos, but I know that in some places they want you to reserve the sunbeds in advance so they can like clean them and keep them for you for the day. So that way they're not having to disinfect them when you leave, because they're supposed to be disinfecting the sunbeds after people leave. So the other thing I wanted to talk to you about is getting to Greece, because this is a huge topic of conversation with people on all the travel groups that I belong to, particularly about Greece, because Greece is one of the places that really wants people to come and has been advertising. And the E was supposed to make an announcement either yesterday or today, and I read yesterday that they have delayed those decisions until Friday. I think there's a lot of political stuff going on with it, because to ban a country means, you know, you're kind of banning, you know, money and politics, and, you know, it all has to do with politics. Forget the fact that we have a virus that's killing people, it's all about politics. So they haven't made any decisions. However, Greece has decided, as of yesterday, that people from the UK are not going to be allowed for at least another 2 weeks. Now, I know people have come from the UK during all of this because it's still technically part of the EU, so I think even though they're saying it, it may be something that they don't enforce. I may be able to speak to this more next week because I'm going sailing tomorrow, and that is the other announcement that I have. I am joining a sailing trip very last minute to sail from here to Corfu. So it will be a 10-day trip. I'm very excited, and another reason to stay tuned to my Instagram stories, because I will be posting a lot, I have a feeling, and we're making like a ton of stops along the way. So I will know more about traveling within Greece as well next week. To Greece. The other thing that I should mention is that for the time being, if you are coming, you have to fill out a form at least 48 hours before you arrive, and then I believe you will get a barcode email, and you will need to show that barcode either on your phone or in a printout when you arrive to Greece. Now, I don't know what they're doing exactly with that information, but I think it's a tracing thing. They're just making sure that if you get sick or someone else you were traveling with gets sick, they can contact you. I know the people that are coming on the sailing trip have filled it out, and it did take about 24 hours for them to get that barcode. So I'd say you probably need it, you know, they say 48 hours, but if you know you're coming and you're coming in 2 weeks, fill it out now. Because there may be delays, especially as travel starts to ramp up. It's, you know, Greece is getting with technology and getting with the 21st century, but they're still a little bit slow on the uptake. So just give them some leeway time, because you don't want your trip to be ruined because you forgot to fill out this silly form. And if you have a problem with being traced, then just don't come. That's basically what it boils down to. I'm not going to beat around this. I'm not going to tell you, oh, you know, whatever. I fully believe that tracing people and wearing a mask and doing your part is what you should be doing. So if you're not willing to do those things, then please don't come. Don't travel anywhere, actually, because you're putting your health at risk and you're putting other people's health at risk. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Anyway, so the good thing about the sailing thing is I have to fly back. I don't know if it's a good thing, but I have to fly back from Corfu to Athens because it's a one-way sail. So I'll kind of get to experience what it's like flying within Greece. I don't have to fill out that form, but I kind of wonder if I will, because how are they tracing people on the planes? You know, because on the ferry I had to fill it out, so you would think there would be something that I had to fill out. It may be just a paper form that I fill out when I get to the airport, so I'll let you know how that goes. If you want to come to Greece this year and you're still not sure whether or not you'll be allowed to, there are a couple of resources that I'm going to list in the description box for you. One is, if you're from the US, is the best thing to do is to check with your embassy in the US, which is the Greek embassy in the US. The other place that you can check that I've been checking is the US embassy here in Athens. So I'm going to link those two embassy websites. The embassy is pretty good about updating when there are changes to the regulations. You can also check with the EU. I will link to that as well. If you're British, there's, again, the British embassy, also very good. I would not rely on the news. The news tends to sensationalize things sometimes and says, oh, so-and-so is going to be banned, but there's been no official announcement yet. I'm not saying that they're wrong, it's just they get insider information and they jump the gun, and then sometimes stuff changes. Like, you know, for days they've been saying that, you know, Americans are going to be banned, but no decision has been made yet. And it's not just Americans, like, we're not going to be the only place that's banned. Sad to say, if you're Australian, you can't leave your country, so I'm not going to advise you on that. If you're from anywhere else, you're going to have to do your own research. I just can't do all the research for you. I wish I could. But if you're in a country and you want to come to Greece, my best advice is to check the embassy of Greece in your own country. So let's say you're in Japan, check with the Greek embassy in Japan. And a lot of it doesn't matter where your passport is from, a lot of it matters where you're flying from. So it's always good to check with them and say, hey, I'm an American, I'm living in Japan, but I would like to come to Greece, and see what they say. Contact your airline. Airline is a good thing to contact, and they're probably going to be the first place to cancel your flight if you aren't allowed to come. So that's another good place to check. So I think that's it this week. If for some reason I get an announcement about changes tonight or tomorrow before I finish editing this video, I will try to come back on really quickly and give you an update on here. And just know that all of this information could change tomorrow. And then it's going to probably change every 2 weeks as data changes and as we know more and as Greece sort of sees how this goes. Because I'm sure that if they feel that there are too many people coming that are testing positive or getting sick while they're here, they will probably shut it down. Greece has been really strict. So just keep that in mind. Get traveler's insurance because, you know, everything could be canceled. Some travel insurance is not covering coronavirus if you get sick from it, so just be prepared for that. Although Greece is covering costs if you get sick while you're here, so that's not so much an issue, but it's more of an issue of if your flight gets canceled or your hotel closes and you quickly have to find something that's probably out of your budget. It's always something good to have. I'll link to a few. I'm not affiliated with any travel insurance, so none of these will be affiliate links. Anyway, stay safe. I'm going to enjoy my trip, and hopefully next week I'll have a sailing video for you if I can get Wi-Fi. Alright guys, see you in the next video.